So, guys, welcome back to another episode of Doggy Stoic. I want to tell you, because my audience, you guys have been so supportive, whether you've seen, reels, short posts on TikTok, or the full episodes on YouTube. The comments, the support, the love has been amazing. Just before this, I was just saying thank you for the opportunity to kind of get to meet people all around the world who've been dog training and have them on the show and learn from them and have awesome conversations. And I'll tell you guys, just to give you a little bit of a preview of how I think about inviting the guests. I'll tell you, there's been kind of this theme with every guest I've spoken with. I think we all love learning, and I think we all love teaching. But then I think back to school. And I think back to school, I was like, how were these people in school, especially like elementary and middle school, Did they enjoy the experience? And as I do research and as I go into, do I want this guest on? When I watch their videos, are the dogs having fun? Are they having fun? I see a recurring pattern, and that is that the dogs are never in this white box of we're learning how to train with fluorescent lights, no distractions, a room, maybe a chair just for me to sit there. The dogs are on field trips. And I always wondered when I was in school, I was like, can we not take our learning into nature? Can we not take our learning around the world? Can we not learn math and science by actually leaving this fluorescently lit room where we're sitting like this? And if you go to JP Canine Academy on Instagram, you'll see the dogs are having fun. They're looking at him. They're playing with him. They're having a blast. JP's having a blast, but the environment changes all the time. And I think that's so cool. I think that's so appealing. And I think it stimulates learning. So without further ado, Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, my friend.
Is what I said there accurate? Do you agree? Like if you go through your videos, you're always in a new place with the dogs. Yeah. You're going on field trips and playing in different places with these dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that there's a load of opinions I have about how people are educated as well and how we could sort of improve that and whatever else. But it's interesting that you bring up the correlation between sort of human learning and what we do with dogs and how we could learn and bring things from dogs into human learning that I think would be really, really applicable. Like practical learning is a huge facet of how many, well, practically speaking, every animal on this planet learns. And for some reason we have, as human beings, we've isolated ourselves and we've, like you say, we've picked these fluorescent concrete boxes to teach children in. And I think that there is a holistic element to learning that is missed both in humans and in dog training in some capacity nowadays. Like you say, there's a lot of people, you watch their stuff and they're in the same place, they're doing the same things, and the dogs all kind of look the same, they're in the same sort of territory, and then you get an idea straight away of the quality of the work.
Well, the dogs learn the commands, they just look flat.
Correct. Exactly. You can teach a dog to sit, but how does the dog sit is more important to me.
Well, the dog knows sit out of the womb. Like what dog has never sat or what dog has never laid down? It's
exactly.
How old are you, Jack?
I'm 30. 30 this year.
You're gonna be 30, or you turn 30, or you're.
Well, so I say I'm 30 this year. I was 30 in June, and I'm going to be 31. I'm in my 30s officially now, so it's a big turning point now, eh?
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. We'll get into your training methods. I found you through. I was watching Kane, like the Shield certs that. They're like 20 minutes long, and there's like these series of really complex. We could call them complex. They look really cool. It's like a 4-minute heel, a down sit, a down stay, sending a dog to place, and maybe the second one I watched was Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, wow, like that's cool. He had 4 Malamutes?
Yeah, he's a monster. The guy, yeah, he's got them all off leash. He has phenomenal control over these dogs. He's a phenomenal trainer.
And then I saw your page through his page, and you guys communicate. So I was like, man, I'd love to get Jack on the show because I love how you train. What was Jack like in high school? Like, bring us back to like the origin story of how you got started in dog training.
So how I got started in dog training. I mean, it's a difficult one, this really. I mean, I always sort of give the same story, but the more I've sort of matured, it sort of like changes slightly because of the more I think about it, the earlier it starts. But officially, I would say where I started becoming interested in dog training was when I was a lot younger. I was like early teens, mid-teens, um, and I'd volunteered at this rescue. Very small run thing, very private. It was only had maybe about 40 kennels in the entire rescue, but there was a line of kennels at the back that we called the red line because it had a big red line going alongside the kennel. And there was a guy in there who was my very first mentor, a guy called Graham, who was a military dog handler, which, Graham's passed now. And so, I'm very hesitant to say this, but like looking back, I wouldn't be executing the methods the same way as I was back then. But with that being said, I owe my entire career to that man. And so, separating art from artist a little bit. So Graham basically took me under his wing. And well, I say that the story is a little bit funny actually, is that I begged him to teach me. And he was like, no, leave me alone. This sort of like late 50s, early 60s Scottish guy. He was like, I cannot be arsed dealing with you, 14-year-old kid, teaching you how to handle dogs. But I begged him. And every time I watched him, I thought it was magic. I remember thinking this guy has some sort of voodoo, some sort of gift with animals. And I begged him for weeks, and he kept saying no, kept saying no. And then eventually he said, okay, go grab Milo out. And Milo was a Caucasian shepherd that was sort of known in our kennel for being a horrible bastard in the kennel. And I refused. And for another week, he said, okay, I'm not going to teach you then. And then eventually I went, fine, I'll go get Milo out. Screw you, sort of thing. And I stormed down that red line. And as I got to Milo's kennel, I touched the handle of Milo's door, and he went, okay, I'll teach you. And he just needed to see that I was willing. He just needed to see that I could get over that fear that I had, because he said, you're not going to be able to help these dogs if you're terrified of them. And he says that I needed to get you to that point. And then he didn't start me on Milo, he started me on easier dogs. But I eventually I was one of the few handlers that could get Milo out at like 15 years old. And so I found a natural knack for it. And for a little bit of time, I came out of dogs. And then in my, just going into my 20s, I started picking it back up again. And then I worked very, very hard at my own business for 2 or 3 years. I volunteered in a lot of rescues. I helped a lot of rescue staff sort of structure out their rescues. And then after that, I sort of got taken on. I sort of made a bit more of a name for myself, and I was taken on by Obsidian Canine as their sort of second trainer, which at the time was the biggest online platform for dog training in the UK. It was huge at the time. Since is obviously it's different now. And with that, I learned a lot about sport work and protection work and obedience and control and all of these very, very, like the most sort of the higher end of dog training, as it were, the sport dogs, that sort of stuff. In more recent times, I've just finished in November. I just finished a bite work course down at Scots. But yeah, so I won't get too far into it. But yeah, that's sort of like the basic structure of the origins.
You know, what's stuck with me there is, in a world where we debate so much about pressure, right? The concept of pressure. This person, it sounds to me like you love Graham. Like he was one of the first people that believed in you. And he didn't give you cookies to get you to get Milo out of the crate. He said, I'm not going to work with you unless you go. He put, well, I guess we could call it peer pressure?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's exactly what it was.
And what a gift that is for someone to believe in you, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's so hard to find. It's and this is what people don't appreciate, is that pressure is a privilege in every other context that you can think of it. If there's pressure on you, it means that there are things that are expected of you, that you have this potential to fill, and that pressure is actually on you to fill that potential,
Jack, it's my biggest pet peeve in dog training is owners who will on an evaluation say how much they love the dog. They'll probably they might say it 50 times. And at some point I'm like, can you define what you mean by love? Because you feed them shitty food. You've already neutered this dog and it's not even a year old. You do nothing fun for this dog. And then you say you love it. That doesn't feel like love to me. I mean, I'm 35. I'm no expert on love, but that doesn't feel like love to me.
Well, I read quite a lot of philosophy and stuff because I think it does really help me a lot with my dog training. That's actually the stoic element of the title of your podcast really appealed to me. Marcus Aurelius and things like that are fantastic minds for this sort of stuff. But I often think about this as like, okay, you genuinely believe that you love this dog, but then when you look at the dog, you see that the dog is sort of falling apart, and you go, well, so what you believe love is not correct. You believe love is sort of like indulgence in the way that you feel towards this animal. And if you feel strongly enough, then that's love. And actually, love is, no, you can't fucking sprint out into the road when you don't look both ways, because that's going to keep your animal alive. And that's going to give them an understanding, conceptual understanding of, hey, the world can hurt a bit. And you've got to be aware of that. As an animal, human being or dog or fucking hamster, it doesn't matter. You have to have if you want to make the most robust version of that animal, they have to have an understanding of like, the world is not going to be all cookies and giving you a cuddle all the time. And if you sort of psychologically prepare the dog for that, that's love. That's love in my estimates. But I think that there's so much convoluted nonsense in this industry right now. You'll know yourself. It's a cesspool in a lot of ways.
I have this like running note on my iPhone that like if I just have ideas that come to mind, I just put them there just so I have it at some point. So I went to Larry Crone, Jay Jack, and Joel's seminar. Mm-hmm. And like when you're driving back, I'm going to ask you this like about seminars you've been to, if you went to any, or like just teachers in general. And I actually wrote love is a sense of duty and responsibility was like kind of my big takeaway from that. You're back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, apologies.
No worries. Difficulties. I put love is a sense of duty and responsibility. And because what I felt from Jay and Larry specifically was like how much they loved the attendees, how much they felt, because so think about this, their day starts at like 7 a.m., right? There's the teaching aspect, then there's the working dog aspect, but they stay there without really much of a break. I don't think they even take a break till 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 p.m. and then they do it again.
Yeah.
Until midnight. So like what a sense of duty they have to help these people with dogs that are, and like at the seminar, unless you go, you don't see it, because these people who get like this like big dog that's out of control and the handler just can't handle it. Like the discrepancy between person and dog is just so vast. Like I would be like, man, you just have to rehome this dog. This dog is not for you.
Yeah. And
they sit there and they break it down detail by detail, step by step, because they really want to see these people succeed. And that is awesome to see. The second thing that I picked up on you was saying like separate the art from the artist. Mm-hmm. That's a good reminder for us, especially us young men, but just in general, like we don't have to always agree with every method everybody does to see value in that person, right? Like, okay, maybe I'm assuming he was probably much more heavy on obedience and you're much more heavy on play, but the overarching belief in the dog is probably something you carry from Graham till today.
Yeah, there's still anecdotes that I used that he used. There's still ways that I handle. So like I often say this to people is that when you work with me for a long period of time, I can see you from about 150 yards away and tell you that you work with me, because I can tell by the way you're moving with your dog. I can tell by the way that you're interacting with you. I have, and not just me, every dog trainer has this. We have stylistic tells about everything that we do. And that's what separates. Again, this is where we have to be able to, as an industry, separate art from artist a little bit, right? Like even in the most extreme case, like people don't like Cesar Millan, and I think he gets a much, much harder time than he deserves, because without that man, you wouldn't have the dog training industry as it stands now. Now, does that mean I agree with everything that Cesar Millan done? No, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. It's not how I would do it. But to say that man walking with 30 dogs around him that are all completely in synergy with each other, and he has them all under control, to say that man can't train a dog is disingenuous. It's just to say that we can have a real conversation. If we're being honest with these things, we can have a real conversation about like, okay, again, like with Graham, is that like Graham's solution a lot of the time with a dog that was trying to pin him, there's a dog that tried to grab him, was you're not going to fucking grab me, and I'm going to show you that you're not going to grab me. Now, Today, when I go through human aggression cases, I take the dogs through many stages before ever getting to that. And I give the dogs opportunities to, like, I'm going to put a muzzle on you and I'm going to get on the floor and okay, you want to have it out? Just have a go then. And then I'm just not going to move. I'm not going to retaliate. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to confirm what you believe about me. If the dog starts to, like, over the course of, let's say, a full hour, 2 hours, 2 sessions, starts to show me that it's kind of getting a kick out of this and it's enjoying it, then I might step in and go, you're not going to do that. But it's a conversation with the dog at this point. But the foundation of that understanding came from Graham. And so even though the execution looks completely different now, without Graham, I wouldn't have my execution. And so we have to be able to, like you say, look at all of the components of what these people are saying. And there's a great, I'm not sure if she's a behavioral scientist or not, but she's a dog trainer as well, called Canine Decoded on Instagram. Phenomenal. She's a very, very scientific trainer, but she goes to the source material. And and when you're watching her, I imagine she sort of bumps into that quite a lot as well, where she's like, I don't quite agree with everything that you're doing because, I have the theoretical knowledge and the practical knowledge, but I can definitely see what you're getting at, and I can definitely see where there's value there, or there could be value there for certain types of dogs. And I think that we have to be able to do that as an industry. And this is why, like, I don't tend to hang out with a lot of people in the industry as much as I'd like. That's not true. I hang out with my selection of people. I have my group. But I don't tend to leave that group very often because then the politics of it all start getting very wiry. And I'm like, this isn't for me. It becomes less about the dogs and more about, like, egos and, like, opinions and things like that, instead of just conversations.
I love that line. I would say that is, that is evolution as dog trainer that I went through. Is we could be so quick to suppress when a dog is acting out, versus what we don't realize on the other side is what you said is, I don't want to confirm what you believe in me.
Mm.
And, like, just letting the dog kind of act out for a little bit, you always have that tool in your tool belt to suppress. You're able to, you can do that. I have that sword that I can wield, but I don't always have to wield that sword. And you're like, hey, like, go at it. See
Exactly.
where this gets you. You'll see it doesn't actually get you where you want. And then the next thing that happens when you stop acting out is going to be much more fun.
Exactly.
And that is evolution. That is such, for us as trainers, to have, like, a little bit more emotional stability, because the dog goes at us, we have, like, male maybe or ego.
Yeah, you're not gonna. You're
not gonna do that, right? And to be hold up a second, like, I can do that later. That's awesome. That's well said.
Definitely. And I think and this is what people don't realize is that. And also, I think that there's another interesting conversation to have about, like, words like suppression. Like, people have made that a very dirty word, and I think it can be, definitely. I think it can be used in excessive amounts and at the wrong times for the wrong reasons and so on. But there's a big but here. There's no example of any animal on this planet that hasn't had to suppress part of who they are in the environments that they live. There's just, you can't show me it, or nobody can show me it because it doesn't exist. So there's neural networks, there's things in our in the nervous system of mammals that are wired for aversive conditioning, and suppression is part of the behavioral spectrum, and we have to be able to observe it as well. But you're absolutely right. The proclivity to jump to it is something that the balanced community should take accountability for if they believe that that's part of their handling style or problems with their handling,
So we talk about, like, suppression in, like, the physical sense.
Mm-hmm.
And a quote that came to mind is, I think it's like Henry David Thoreau. He says, like, most men lead lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
So I think most dogs lead quiet lives of desperation.
Massively.
So one of the things you wrote was, it was one of your recent quotes, to get, like it's easy to see an aggressive dog that you get them to play, but a dog that's shut down, I think you put, like, buried its head in the sand.
Yeah.
And getting that dog to play, especially play, like, forcefully, compete and win, that's art, right? Because that was a dog that like is leading a quiet life of desperation, I would say that dog is suppressed given who it actually is compared to how it's living.
Exactly.
How do
Exactly.
you get how do you get dogs like that to play, man?
That's a good question.
And
It's a
compete.
convoluted. It's a convoluted question. It's not
And
quite as simple as that. However, I'll do my best for you here. So, a good example, actually, probably the best place for me to start answering that question was when I was learning how to do bite work in the suit and in the sleeves and stuff. So, when you've got a dog on your bicep and you can feel every tooth in his head and he's going boom, boom, you know he's comfortable and you know he's confident and you can feel it. And there is never there in my life there has never been a more direct there's never been more direct feedback from a dog than when I'm in a suit. You know, like if he starts pulling and if he starts, you see the eyes pinging around and whatever else, you know he's starting to get a little uncomfortable, and you have to now do something to help that dog understand that no, 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 that's not the solution. The solution is come forward, go through. And so what you learn to do when you're doing bite work with a dog and working a dog properly in a suit, not just like letting the dog strike you and standing there, working the dog properly in a suit is that this is an emotional thing. This is not what would you say? This is not like,
just like
you
robotic.
know, yes, this is not mechanical. This is an emotional thing. And so I bring a dog out like that little bull breed that I had in, and she is very environmentally nervous, and she's generally speaking she's a bit suppressed because of her past. She's been through a lot, that dog. And so I brought that dog. I'll give you this dog as an example. Actually, I brought that dog out, and she just doesn't understand the mechanism of play. She doesn't understand what play is, and so when I offer it, it sends her further into conflict because she goes, "I don't know how to respond to this. I don't know what the right answer is here." And then you'll see that in the dog. Now, when people see that in the dog, what they often do is they try and they either put the ball away or they slow the session down or they change what they're doing. And I just continue. I just go, I'm going to keep flicking this ball around and I'm going to see if you show any interest whatsoever. And at one point in that session, she's displacing that much that she starts chewing the lead. Now that's perfect because that's exactly what I want, because I want her to bite the wrong thing. I want her to bite the thing that is, no, you're not allowed to do that. So I took that very, very nervous dog, a dog that doesn't have a lot of emotional resilience. She tried biting this lead on a flat collar. I went, no. And then I gave her a little nudge for that. After that, I offered the ball again. I said, not that, this. And then straight away, grab that toy. Now, that isn't always going to happen like that. Sometimes that's going to take multiple sessions for the dog to click into that place. But then what's really important is that what happens when the dog strikes the toy is the dog is not met with loads of competition all of a sudden, that the dog is met with a win straight away. Yeah. So the dog strikes the toy. I let it go. I stumble back and I show the dog how strong she is. Immediately, what you're doing there is you're showing the dog you're powerful here. You can throw me around. And to a bull breed, that's always going to be appealing. And so the caveat of that game, and the only reason that dog would play that game with me, was because of the way I participated and the way I explained what the rules of this are. And I was lucky that she bit the wrong thing. And I went, hey, that's actually wrong. And came onto the talk straight after that. But it's about reading the dog. It's about understanding why she feels the way she feels, not just what she feels. And also understanding that like patience here is going to be the biggest factor. Patience here. What people don't see in that 1 minute clip that is the 15 minutes of ignoring that ball. You know, like they don't see that. They just see sort of like the miracle start and finish. Now that's something I've edited and put together, admittedly, so that's maybe on me, but mainly because it's very difficult to sort of advertise 15 minutes of a dog sniffing the floor while you try to get it to bite a ball. But it's about the holistic reading of the dog and making sure that you're offering a game that makes sense to the genetics that are in front of you if the dog is not very well versed in play. That's probably the best answer I could give.
That was amazing. And I love how you recalled back to the bite sleeve and when a dog is confident, all the teeth locked in. I know the rules of the game versus when the eyes start wandering, the teeth start chattering, and how to get them back into. I mean, that's awesome. Now I'm thinking like everyone should be a decoy for a little while.
Yes.
It's not just
100%.
as simple as a dog biting a piece of fabric. It's everything that happens kind of in between that.
People do not appreciate remotely the amount of skill that sits inside of decoys. They think it's just a bunch of men getting bit in a suit. People have no, this is a tango, this is a dance, this is a game of chess between the two of them. And depending on the outcome that the decoy is trying to produce, if it's a good decoy, if it's somebody like Scott Bull at Bull Vision in the UK, which is the Yoda of bite work in the UK, when you watch Scott work a dog, he doesn't have to do very much. A dog can be sat on the other side of the room, and Scott can be sat in his chair, and he can just look over his shoulder at the dog and send messages to that dog from 30 yards away that dog feels. And that's just, it's the gut feeling that this man carries, and the knowledge that sits inside of that man's gut, and the way he moves, how long it takes him to stand up, how long it takes him to pick that bite sleeve up, how he puts it on. All of it is a step in a dance. And the dog dances to his tune, not the other way around. This is the snake charmer, this is the cobra. And when you're watching it, and when you've tried doing it yourself, and then you watch somebody like Scott do it, you're like, oh my God, there are levels upon levels to this. And you can only really truly appreciate how talented these people are by getting in that suit and trying it yourself, and having that pressure from these monster dogs sat right in front of you, right on your butt. And it was my first ever time doing these sorts of things. But I tell you, I can understand why people say it's addicting, because it's so much fun. It's as a dog lover, as somebody who is just all about dogs, there's not, like I said before, there's not a more direct conversation you can have with a canine outside of using his mouth, interacting with his bite, fighting you in a real way, but then fighting you in a way that has sort of conditions as well, which I fucking love.
At what stage? So you had Graham, 14 to what age were you there?
So, 16, 17 maybe. So yeah, something in that region.
3 years of kennel work, shelter work, working with some kind of repressed dogs. Yeah. Who did you go study under, or maybe nobody, or maybe you just kind of like put bits and pieces and put them together? Who did you go study, and when did play become such a big component of Jack's training?
Oh, that's more recent. That is more recent. So when I worked with Obsidian, Jay, the guy who ran Obsidian, I have nothing but good things to say about Jay in a lot of ways. He is probably the most. He was very, very, like, he's another one, he taught me through trial, and he put me in the deep end as well. But the way that Jay trains and the way that I train now are different, or the way that I trained when I was with Jay, and the way that I train now are a bit different. That isn't to say, like I said, art from artist. That isn't to say I don't take a lot away from Jay. But what I realized with the systems that I was using a lot of food reinforcement, and I was finding that it was clicking for some dogs, and like reactive dogs and things like that. I was using a lot of food reinforcement. I was creating, I was hand feeding these dogs, and I was doing these sorts of things. And there was just like a point that I was getting a lot of these dogs up to that I was like, something's missing. There's just something that isn't, and I can't quite put my finger on the pulse of what it is, but I'm not developing these dogs as far as I want them to be developed, and I'm not seeing the character development that I would like to see from these dogs. And let's say 40 to 50% of circumstances, I can get the result, I can switch the behavior off, I can make the dog look really happy and all this sort of thing, but then it felt a bit hollow to me. And as a dog trainer, I'm always analyzing the dogs that I'm training in my own shit as well. So I'm always saying, is this good enough? And that's something that's really important to me. So I sort of stepped back from that style of very systematic way of training, click feed, if you look at me, and all that sort of stuff. And I said, right, I'm just going to dedicate myself to learning about play. And that's when I found out about Ivan. And to give Chris his credit, so Chris at a company called Reliable in the UK, Chris is a TWC trainer, or he was a TWC trainer, should I say. He's a fantastic mind for dog training. The way he plays, the way he rehabilitates behavioral cases, It's fascinating, and it fascinated me from the outgo. He has these amazing sport dogs, amazing working dogs that also have a phenomenal social balance and have this ability to like be monsters on the protection field, but then also be beautiful social butterflies with his family and other dogs. And that was something that from the world I came from, you weren't seeing as much of that. And so I got fascinated, and then I went down and I spent some time with Chris. And at this point, I just rescued my Presa Canario cross dude, and I was having a nightmare with that dog. That dog was trying to grab me. He was trying to grab my missus. He was like trying to kill everything that moved. And I took dude down to him as a trainer, and I was like, "Listen, mate, I've never had a Presa before in my life. I don't know what to do with this dog. He's all over the place. What do you recommend?" This was about 2 years.
You rescued this Presa?
I did, yes. He was going to be part of a rescue.
When you rescued him?
He was just under 1 when I got him.
Right.
Just under 1. So like prime dickhead age as well, which was great. So just under 1, and I go, and 6-8 months, I'm banging my head against the wall with this dog, and it's just really not going anywhere. The obedience was beautiful. I could build.
Are you still using the click treat food protocol?
Yeah, very systematic. A lot of food, hand feeding the dog, all this sort of stuff, right? So I'm doing all the stuff that every dog trainer in the country tells you to do with this dog, and every time it felt like I made a bit of progress, the dog would, like the relationship wasn't there, is what I'm saying. And this dog refused to play. And I mean, like, didn't want to. He would see a toy and walk away. He'd be like, "Fuck you, no chance. I don't want to play with you." So I took him down to see Chris. Chris initially got him to play a little bit, but then he just pulled himself back. And this is the type of dog that the reason I'm bringing up Dude is because Dude was a huge component in when I transitioned over to using predominantly play for behavioral rehabilitation. So Chris basically said, until this dog is playing, you do nothing else. Now I will take things on face value, and I will fucking, okay, no problem. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So I respected everything about what Chris did with these dogs. I respected he could pull these dogs out in any situation, and they were goddamn impressive dogs. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do with this dog. Took me about 6 more months to figure out how the dog likes to play. Now, from there, I started changing. So I went and I spoke to decoys about this, and how would you play with this dog? What would you do with this dog? Because this is a Presa. So this is like what decoys are much more experienced with these types of dogs than anyone else. And I went and spoke to Scott Bull about it, and he said that the problem that you have is that you're offering him play, and this is a very serious dog. He doesn't want to play with you.
He wants to fight.
He wants to fight you. And so I was like, Roger, got it. So tied the dog to a fence, flicked a little bit of the toy around, nothing at first. But then he sort of turned his back to me, and I went, "Oi!" And he turned around, and at this point, this dog, if I raised my voice or whatever else, he was thinking about having a bit of a row. Came back around, and he started barking at me, fed him the tug. He ragged it. And then after that, I started putting together this routine between me and Dude, and it turned into sparring. So once a week, we were going to tie you to this fence post, and we're going to spar. And that was the only thing we did. Well, I say that. We went on walks, and we did the usual ticking boxes sort of stuff. But I taught the dog how to play. That was the main thing that I done for 6 months. Nothing else. All of the dog aggression went away. All of the handler aggression went away. His social balance with people and dogs right now are at a point where he can play with dogs, and he can be left with my 5'2" girlfriend to look after him for a full weekend when I'm away doing a workshop in Scotland. And I didn't teach that dog any of that stuff. I just taught him how to play. And within the bounds of play, I taught him what no means. I taught him how to listen to no, how to cooperate with punishment, how to cooperate with elements of the game. And he did so in such a motivating way that he barely even realized that he was learning these aversive things. And now, because I've practiced all of these skills in a high state of drive, high state of arousal, a fighting state of mind, because I've practiced it in these places, when he's not in these places and I go, "Hey, wind your neck in," he goes, "No problem." And there's a cooperative element. Now me and that dog have as close a relationship as I do with my working Rottweiler downstairs, because I do nothing else with that dog but fulfill his needs. And then I go and test the dog's behavior in a variety of different ways after X amount of time every time. But I didn't walk this dog past dogs and feed him for looking at me. I didn't expose him to dogs over and over and over again. I just taught him, this is how you play with your dad. And now we don't just spar, we play as well. So now we play chase and fetch, and now we play tug, and now we play possession games and these styles of things. And so that has opened up so many doors for that dog. And the real magic started happening when he could take a consequence in the game. That was the real magic, because that's true cooperation for a dog like him.
Don't you think? To me, it sounded like the real magic was when you told him A, and you got his mind to switch from we're just having a little bit of fun to like let's really try to hit each other.
Exactly.
Game. Like
exactly.
Do you do mixed martial arts at all? So many people.
I have done in the past. I've done a bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I've boxed as well.
Okay, boxing, cool. It is different to just hit a punching bag, which it's fun. And like when you're in boxing, do it for a year. Some days you just want to hit a punching bag, just like to get it all. But there's something different when you're like sparring with someone, especially a little bit above their pay grade, and they just keep jabbing you in the nose. Eventually, like, dude, F you, man. Like,
fuck you. Yeah.
Like the A was like a.
Oh yeah, so it's like me calling him out. It's like me going like, "You're not going to, hey, dickhead, over here. This is what you're thinking.
You're 120 pounds. Show me what you got."
Yeah, show me how much of a fucking presser. You want to bite me? Come and bite me. And
you've been trying to. You said handler aggression, dog aggression. You've been going out in the world acting like a complete asshole. This is your chance. You're not going anywhere. You're back time.
Yeah. And there was almost a part of him that when I said, "Go and do it," then he was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And that little prediction error is a fascinating thing, because what it can change in a dog is so fundamental that it doesn't need repetition. You understand? So
it's a switch. It's a light bulb.
Exactly. It's a light bulb going off, and then the dog attaches itself to that idea. And when people understand how aversives actually work within the nervous system and the neural networks in the dog's head, you realize very quickly that one of the easiest ways of creating prediction error is to produce an aversive experience. Now, to each dog, that aversive experience is going to look and be executed differently. But if you find something that is truly aversive to your dog, and you pair it and match it and attach it to something that is truly valuable to the dog, you have real good dog training there. You have beautiful dog training there, because I don't have to go crazy with aversives with any of my dogs anymore, because they have a conceptual understanding of what no means. So it's not about no and you get punished. It was that in the conditioning phase. No, and then tap on an electric, or tap on his prong, or whatever it may be. But all of my dogs, if I go heavy on aversives with them, if I come in like a freight train, they just dig in. They're just, because they're strong, big, intact males. And so, and they're fighters as well. You know, Mask is a protection dog. Dude's done protection work at this point. They're both gladiators. So they're used to taking pressure, and they've been told from an early age, if somebody gives you pressure, you fight through it. And so you have to have a conceptual understanding of that for the dog, rather than just this sort of mechanical reliance on equipment or whatever else it might be. Does that make sense?
I mean, not only does it make sense, the better I got, the more experienced I got, the less pressure I use.
Correct.
It's actually, can I tell you the truth? It makes me feel better.
Definitely.
Because just using pressure on your dog, it becomes this standoff that's not even that fun.
Well, the question that you have to ask yourself at every point of your dog's training is, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And so at some point, every balance trainer at some point has had to stand back from their training and gone, I'm a bit pissed off right now. Yeah. I'm a bit flustered right now. I'm not being fair on this dog. I need to put the dog away. Yeah. Everyone. And then, by the way, even the force free lot, they've all done it. They've all done it. You want to know how I know that? Because you're a human being. And dogs can and often are frustrating animals. Yeah. I think the problem with this comes when people refuse to talk about it, when people refuse to admit the fact that as a dog trainer that you've made mistakes. I've said this many times. If I could go back in time and redo some of the dogs that I owe some dogs an apology from early doors when I just didn't know my arse from a hole in the ground. I owe some dogs an apology, and I have to sort of like take that forward as experience and make sure that doesn't happen again, you know. And but this unwillingness for people to admit, like people are very quick to talk about, oh, I've grown. What have you grown from? Tell her, be honest. Do you know what I mean? Like, be honest about your shit. And it's the same with the force-free lot are even worse at it in a lot of ways because they're so disingenuous that they'll tell you that they never have these feelings with their dog and they never lose their head at their dog. They never get frustrated or raise their voice or anything like that. And that's just a lie.
You know what they need to grow from?
Go on.
Then you just their pressure is on the human, and their tool is shame.
Absolutely.
They put these people, these owners, in shame. It's like, think about it. First time owner, this is typically what I get, is I rescued like an 8-year-old dog from the shelter, and now I love my dog so much. She's perfect. She lived in a kennel her whole life. She's perfect. And I got a puppy. And then they start taking this puppy to like different like places, these different like little like force-free. And these force-free, I have like 12 of them. I'm in Miami area, next to me. These conversations happen, Jack. I'll tell you so often. It's not everyone, obviously. The guys listening.
But there's enough of it.
Yeah, but think about it. So instead of training this dog, these are the conversations that these academies have with the owner. It's like, never use a prong, never use an e-collar, never do this, never do that, never do this. And they just load shame into the human, where the human is left confused with a misbehaving puppy, but feeling so stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also they're at a point where they've ideologically been shut off to the idea of new perspectives and new uses of equipment and so on and so forth. And the scariest part about that is that if we look at the uptick of people buying dogs that, let's say, don't suit them, and don't suit the lifestyle that they have, and then you also look at the uptick of the training methods that don't suit those dogs, and then you combine those two things together, and what you have then is dysfunctional relationships with dogs and humans all over society. And as dog trainers, we're supposed to just be like, oh, well, when that client comes in, we've got to be super nice and we've got to be super straightforward with them. No, somebody's got to tell you that you've been a fucking moron and this dog is suffering because of it. Now, am I the person to do that? Often. I don't really put myself in that position often. Do I feel it? Oh, God, yeah. All the fucking time. I'm like, you're 85 years old and you've bought a cattle-bred collie. What are you doing? Like whose idea was this? You know, like you should invest in a bib because you're just dribbling. Do you know what I mean?
Tell you my 3? I actually just wrote this down. It's on the other tab. These are the 3 things that I think every puppy needs to learn in the first 6 to 9 months. Because a lot of people come to me with like, doesn't matter if it's a little Cavapoo or a Rottie, whatever. They're like, how do you get my little puppy to walk politely on a leash? And I said, that's not what you need to work on. So the 3 I have is play. Puppies are so biddable, moldable. Get them to play. Get them to play. Get them to chase things. Get them to bite things and do it with you as much as possible. Don't pick up all the toys from the house. They don't need toys on the floor. They don't need toys in the crate. Bring out that toy, say ready, throw it. Bring out that toy, say ready, let it bite. Do that. Right? 2. I think Ivan calls this look for recurring points of conflict. I call this pressure in low stakes environments. Begin to use just a little tiny bits of leash pressure to teach your dog how to comply and then eventually avoid leash pressure, right?
Correct.
When mom or dad say something, not for a treat, not for anything else, follow our direction. I'm going to use a leash to show you how to do that. Every dog is different. Some dogs don't want to get in a crate. Some dogs don't want to get out of a crate. Some dogs want to jump up on stuff, whatever it is. Leash pressure. Ideally pair that with a marker word for negative reinforcement. I use the word doesn't matter, but concept of leash pressure. And then second thing is socialization in 2 buckets, neutral and interactive with an off switch. Those are my 3 things for raising a good puppy. Push back. Tell me what you would add, what you'd subtract.
So I think there's something I would add. I wouldn't subtract any of that. But there's something I would personally add, which is create, either whether it be verbal or with a clicker or whatever, create communication systems that the dog can rely on. So good, and understanding that that is positive information for you. Character development for the puppy as well. Now that sort of ties nicely into what you were saying about the leash, is that you're teaching the dog small amounts of resilience at an early stage, and so the dog has more resilience and more clarity with regards to that sort of pressure in the future. I love that. But character development is something that I think is sort of mashed together nowadays with confidence building, and I don't think those are the same thing. So I think they can be part of the same picture, but let's say you have a very, very confident puppy. Well, you want that puppy to develop character and develop who he is, but you probably don't need to keep building that confidence, because that's going to lead to fucking headaches. You understand? So it's like a seesaw constantly, but character development would be confirming who your dog is. So if you've got a collie, you start tapping into herding. If you've got a bull breed, you start tapping into fighting. If you actually analyze the way, not just like play. Like I would probably, the only thing I would actually really add to the play side of things is I would probably add play the way your dog loves to play. That's probably the only tweak I would make. But outside of that, full agreement. Socialization, get your crate structure right, get your dog, the dog's day-to-day routine sorted, and play and bond with that dog in the best ways that you possibly can. And outside of that, just exposure. And I love that you really put the two brackets of socialization in two separate entities there, which is spot on. Which is socialization in a lot of people's heads just means the interaction, or actually nowadays it could also just mean that just the neutral, and that's just as much of a fucking problem. And that's actually something that I was a problem with doing years ago, is that I was like, when I was very click feed, it was very much like, no, it's me. You have to look at me all the time. And I'm very much not like that now. But yeah, I think that's a perfect characterization of how I would do that. But yeah, character development and playing the way that your dog loves to play. That's what I would, and I would encourage people to spend time figuring out and not just guessing as to how their dog likes to play. Like if you have a collie and you try and do some herding games with it, and the dog doesn't really show any response, or the dog doesn't show any intrinsic interest, which is what you're looking for, then I might alter that and change that depending on the temperament and the sort of proclivities of that dog.
Have you come to the States for training, for seminars?
No, never.
Have you ever been to the States?
Once. I went to LA once and I hated it. I did not enjoy it. Well, as a Scotsman, I like big open spaces, hills, forests, that sort of stuff. But at the time, I was very much into my bodybuilding. So, like, the idea of going to Venice Beach was super appealing to me. I went to Venice Beach, and I was like, "Oh, this is not as cool as I thought it was going to be. There's a lot of crackheads here." But outside of that, it was actually no. We had amazing food. The food in LA was really, really good. But it was years ago I went there. But yeah, I've never come out to the States, but I would at some point. It's difficult with the boys, difficult with the dogs, because you got to. I have somebody who can board them, but it's a pretty penny for my boys.
Yeah, and you don't want to leave them.
No, and that's the other side of it as well. Like somebody said to me the other week, they're like, "Do you ever go on holiday?" And I'm like, well, I don't think I want to. Like every day I get to get up and work my dogs and work other people's dogs and whatever else. I don't feel like I need a holiday most of the time. And so I never really think about it. I don't know if that's just me. It probably is just me. A lot of people enjoy their holidays, don't they?
Well, obviously we as trainers need days off where it's like, whoa, like but we're in nature a lot, where we're with animals. So it's not like someone asked me if I'm like burnt out. And I worked I worked on Wall Street when I got out of college. I've worked those like the corporate job for a second. I've been in business for myself for over 10 years at this point. We had a family cafe where I woke up at 5 a.m. and was there till 6 p.m. where I definitely felt like emotionally exhausted, but I don't feel emotionally exhausted given what I do. Sometimes I feel physically exhausted and like a little tired, but nothing that 1 or 2 days away from training won't fix.
And that's passion. That's all that is. That's passion, is that like, and this is what people cannot comprehend, is that, so like when I worked with Obsidian, I didn't have a day off for two and a half years, something like that. I just worked. Like from the moment my eyes popped open, I would be answering people in the chat. I would be responding to videos.
And
I
it
would be
was
doing
virtual, right? Did I catch that right? It was all
yeah.
online
So
training.
it was both. We did a bit of both. So we had like academy open days, group sessions. We had all of our one-to-one work, but predominantly it was one-to-one work, and then the online work that would sort of pair with that. And it was actually a really, really good format. The community that we had at one point was fucking awesome. It was just the market changed and things started altering, and there was loads of different options for people, and so I think it just became more hassle than it was worth for Jay towards the end. But like again, Jay is one of these people that when you watch how he trains, you can see very evidently this man can train a dog, right? And the execution of that, I always say to people, is that like being a good dog trainer is not about just being able to train dogs. It's also being able to communicate with people and being a bit of a people person as well. And I don't think Jay would mind me saying this. Jay is not exactly known as a people person, but he was a phenomenal dog trainer. And so his talents obviously carried him a very, very long way. But yeah, it's when you're passionate and when you care deeply about what you do, it doesn't feel like what you're working. Don't get me wrong. Like for me, I get burnt out because of the level of one-to-one work I do, and that's teaching. And sometimes teaching to unresponsive people, and so that can be very demoralizing and a bit draining. But it doesn't make me seek a day off. It was weird. It's like I could come out of those sessions, and if I had hair, I'd be tearing it out. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, who's next? Like it's just what you got to do. But then there is times as well where you've got to stand back from the business and realize that you have your own dogs and you have your own goals and you have your own ambitions, and people need to also recognize that when they come in and deal with the dog trainer, is that I'm not just available to you 24/7 at the same time. Like I try and be as available as I can to the people that I work with, but at the same time, you've got to prioritize your own stuff. You've got to be able to grow as a trainer in order to help people.
Jack, so I wanted to, you're doing great with that, because that's exactly where I wanted to transition to.
Perfect.
I want you to put on your dog trainer business hat, right?
Okay.
Because you've seen so many young trainers get into this space, social media, and just the landscape in general. And I don't think anything negative about this, is more people want to work for themselves now than ever before. Yeah. And as someone who craves autonomy and freedom, I encourage it. I was never someone out of college. I got a Wall Street job for 6 figures. This was in 2013, and I hated that. Quit it after three months. Mm-hmm. Like I really have such an urge for freedom, autonomy, and controlling my own destiny that I can't even sit in a fluorescent office and get paid really good money. Like sometimes I think back, I was like, dude, you're crazy, man. You're so silly. You've sought out problems for yourself.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
But I think there's an element of character there that's important to recognize, and I think it's actually found in a lot of dog trainers. You seek uncomfortability. You seek the idea of being the worst guy in the room, maybe. And to a lot of people, that's so aversive that they never think about doing it. But I mean, I can tell you for free that when I go and stand in a room with people who have competed at a world level, national level, you feel like you've never handled a dog a day in your life, and you sort of sit there and you go, all right, I've got 16 years in this game now, and I still don't know anything. And I think that the great thing about that is that Seneca, another famous Stoic, very famously once said, is that, I think it might be Seneca, it might be, the only thing I know for sure is that I know nothing. It was Aristotle, my mistake. The only thing that I know for sure is that I know nothing. And if you go into the situations, and by the way, that applies to pet owners coming in to see a dog trainer. Pretend you don't know a single fucking thing. Empty your glass completely. And then come in with that empty glass and go, I don't know anything about dogs. Teach me. As a completely green, fresh slate. Because that is the best position to be in to learn. So I think that part of whoever, like that part of you that's sitting in that office getting paid really good money, that goes like, this is shit. I don't like this at all. Knows that there is like a holistic part of your life that's missing. And so it seeks that out in whichever shape it takes. And for you, it's dogs. And for me, it was dogs. And that's obviously the beautiful thing about this industry, is that I think a lot of people are drawn into this from that place in their character, which is nice to see.
I haven't thought about it until this year. I don't even know why. I was like now looking at it, I was like, my boss quit and like the under boss quit. So I could literally have just sat there, collect biweekly paychecks. I was 23 years old, living in San Francisco. Could just like live the life, like go party and collect good money and just have the best life.
Yeah. And you're like, nah, I want to get smashed by dogs.
What am I doing? So
good.
what advice would you recommend to younger trainers, both from like, obviously go learn from good people. You've had the blessing of, I'll even say you attracted great mentors because you showed that you were willing, but like from just like a business perspective, what business advice would Jack give people?
Oh, that's a good question. Now, I want to, before I give any answers here, I am very much a dog man before I'm a businessman. You know, like that's when
you saw Jay, you ran a business in a city.
I did. Yes, absolutely.
You know, you don't have to like, we don't have to be like the best businessman in the world to say, hey, remember that hole I jumped into by accident is one you could avoid.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think probably the best piece of business advice I could give to new dog trainers coming in, young dog trainers coming in, is stay in your lane for as long as you can, but then go and seek people out that will bring you out of that lane. That's probably the easiest way I could phrase it, is that be very careful what you give out advice-wise, because these are living, autonomous animals. These are not an object. These are not a car. These are not a TV. These are not something that needs to be repaired. These are things that need to have a relationship formatted, their mental health, if you will, adjusted and changed and made better again. And so it's important that people coming in don't fall victim to the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is, if you're not familiar, I don't know how familiar you are with that, if you've ever heard of it, but for people watching who haven't, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological principle that basically suggests that when people get a very small amount of knowledge on something, that they believe that it's a lot because they have nothing to compare it to. You go further into the process of learning that, there you go, perfect.
And, you go further into they call that the Mount Stupid, and then it goes to the Valley of Despair.
Correct, exactly. So when you're at the top of Mount Stupid, you're on TikTok doing replies to dog trainers with 20 years in the game, going, you're wrong, and this, that, and the next thing, and you look like an idiot. About 6 months in, maybe even longer than that, depending on you, you're going to be in the Valley of Despair. When you're in the Valley of Despair, this is basically you realizing that you know this much, and you thought you knew this much, and you don't. You know this much. So try your best. Now, even the bugger of this is that even when you're aware of it, you will still fall victim to it. I still fall victim to it. I'm sure you do at some points or another. We go see somebody like Ivan, or we watch some of Ivan's stuff, and we're thinking, I can do that. And then you go and try it, and you go like, fucking hell, I'm not Ivan Balabanov. So you learn very quickly that there is like an ebb and flow for failure and success. And that's normal. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be fucking hard on yourself. But equally, don't step out of that lane too far, because you're going to fuck some dogs up, or you're going to get yourself hurt. And I think that that's probably the best piece of that's dog training advice, really. But business advice, I would say, be honest.
That's business advice too, though, right? Like,
I suppose it is.
You make some like, because it's not that you just want to train dogs. I mean, hey, I want to have an online membership program with videos, right?
Yeah.
And I could. It's very different to train a dog hands-on in person than to virtually tell someone how they should train the dog.
Correct.
Completely different. Correct. Let me be more clear. You have to simplify your knowledge into a much more step-by-step basis, where when you are working the dog in like a board and train staying with you, you're feeling the dog. You're going a lot by your gut. But if you're teaching someone virtually, they don't have that gut developed. They haven't seen hundreds of dogs. They've seen one dog. And now you have to simplify things in a very cohesive manner. And I've been thinking a lot more about like how trainers put out video programs. And I imagine they go through this as well, the peak of Mount Stupid, then the Valley of Despair. And guys, don't lose hope. If you could make it through the Valley of Despair, it goes slope of enlightenment. If you stay with it, if you churn through that, and then the plateau of sustainability.
Yes.
And then back
Absolutely.
to the Valley of Despair.
And by the way, I'm 16 years into my career. I would still say I'm about halfway up the slope of enlightenment, maybe even less than that. And that's me being as aware as I can about my ego, you know. And like I really thought about that. I really thought about where I sit, because I go and hang out with people who are better than me enough so that I get reminded you don't know everything. And you're not even close to knowing everything. 40 years in the game compared to 16 is just a different ball game. It's a completely different. It's the difference between a blue belt and a black belt. You know, black belt and a blue belt do the same things, but the black belt does it substantially better. You know, and it's just more fluid. Everything works a bit easier. It's more muscle memory. It's easier to the person to find that knowledge in their body than it is for you to find it, because it's much, much more practiced. But I think that when people get into that valley of despair, one of two things happen. They either find out that they love dogs and they're going to keep going and they're going to trip through it, or they give up and they say that this is too hard. It's too much to learn. And if you're the latter, you probably shouldn't be a dog trainer in the first place, because like we said before, you need passion. And this is where like people sometimes comment on my like TikTok videos saying like, God, you're really brash and you're really harsh. And it's like, no, I just care. I just give a shit. And so when Sally from Force Free Dog Training down the road say your reactive dog needs a handful of food thrown in front of it, I don't just say, no, I disagree. I say, fuck off. No, like what, like you're going to ruin that dog and you're going to ruin that person's relationship. And so I use my free speech as much as anyone else does. You know, like, no, you're not going to, I'm not going to fucking allow that just to go unchecked. If I have some capacity to educate somebody away from that principle and towards the principles that are actually going to help their dog, then I will do that, you know.
Jack, why do you think your clients come to you? Like, just if you think through like the last like 10, 15, 20 clients that you've worked with, you know, some that have come in that have been a little more challenging, others that have been a pleasure. Why do they choose to work with you?
Because I'm honest. Because I don't bullshit people. I don't lie to people. I don't tell people it's going to be easy when it's not. I don't tell people. And some, by the way, that can cost you clients as well. Because the next guy will tell you, oh yeah, we could do this in 5 weeks, no problems. And I won't say that. I'll be like, hey, listen, no, this is going to be longer than you think. This is probably going to cost you a bit more money than you think. If you're really about it and you really want to dedicate yourself to this, then I will dedicate 100% of my efforts to helping you and this dog. If you're not about it and you don't want to do it, then I'd recommend you go somewhere else. And that's something that has been a staple of my business from day one, which is it's not a good idea for building a business. But it's at the point in my career that I'm at, I have enough of a reputation now that most of my clientele come through word of mouth and not as much from social media as people think. I do my social media because I like to be able to show people that I can back up what I say. But outside of that, most of the time people are coming to me, it's because, oh, such and such came to you and they had very good results, so we want to come to you as well.
And is it typically that, hey, you know, such and such came to you and they had great results, I want to come to you? We've already been to 2 or 3 or 4 other trainers.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I've had it where, so there's a selection of balanced trainers in the UK that everyone seems to circulate around, and a couple of them for sure produce some issues, and I won't go into names because I'm not about that. And usually speaking, when if somebody's gone through like 3 trainers, there's 2 assessments that I make in my head. A, is the trainer's the problem, or are you the problem? And I can figure that out fairly quickly just by how they communicate and just by how they talk and how they interact with the dog. If they're very loud and very opinionated and all that sort of thing, this isn't a trainer problem, this is a you problem. And that's something that I would advise for any young trainers as well. Get used to realizing you cannot help everyone. And that's going to eat you up at first, because you're going to feel like you're a shit dog trainer because you can't help
every dog, or you could help most dogs, but you could help less people.
Exactly that. You know, like there's been very, very few dogs in the last 3, 4, 5 years that I've come in that I've been like scratching my head and I just don't know what to do with. But there's been plenty of people like hundreds of people that have been like, I can't work with you. And you can either be a trainer that says, okay, I'm going to sort of suck it up and, you know, whatever else, I'll try my best with them. But near enough every time, you're going to bump into the same fucking problem, which is that their starting position, they started in the wrong place in their head. And so because of that, when you're like, this is the first step, they're like, they think it's back here. It's like, no. You think you're starting here. You're starting all the way over there, mate. And like what you said, oh, I want my puppy to work well in a lead. Well, that's not a fucking priority, is it? That's like the puppy needs to grow and develop, mate. You stop trying to make the dog do something that's immensely boring, you know?
I remember, and man, I that comment got me triggered because life does, you do need money. Like
Yes.
you do need money to live, especially when you're early on and you took a leap into business, you have responsibilities, and being stuck between a rock and a hard place where
Yeah.
you can't help this client. This dog might be out of your bounds as well, but you have that end of the month rent or mortgage or whatever it is. Oh man, as a young business person, that's so hard because your gut says, man, I gotta say no. This is gonna be such a headache, but I need the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's where you've got to really base your business and where your ethics are. So for me, my ethics are based in something outside of me. So I'm a man I have faith. So my ethics in my business come from that. And my ethics in my business come from the idea of honesty first at all points, no matter what, no matter how uncomfortable this session gets, no matter how, if I've made clients cry with what I've said, not intentionally, like I've not said it to upset them, I've just said the truth and it happens to upset them. Don't get me wrong, my delivery can definitely do some work at points.
Typically, when people come to you with the dog, sometimes they're already at a really interesting emotional stage where you might not even say anything that you feel that's crazy and they break down.
Yeah, exactly. Or sometimes it happens in the opposite direction where somebody comes in and they're super, super emotional about their dog and their dog isn't a big deal. Like the dog's fine and they just need to calm the fuck down. And that's a different situation. And by the way, I've found, so like a lot of trainers, even balance trainers on my side of the pond, when they teach, they're very like, oh, well, you know, maybe there's a lot of beating around the bush. There's a lot of like, okay, well, I know that's going to hurt her feelings, so I'm not going to say it. You've been paid to fix this fucking problem. And if you are in a position where you can't do it because the owner is not cooperating or the dog's, like you say, out of your bounds, then you have to be honest. And even like you say, even if that rent payment's due, it's tricky, it's hard. Everyone's got to look out for themselves in this world. That's sort of like the rule of business a little bit. But I don't know, like I started this business with £6 in my bank account. $6 over in your world. $6 in my bank account, £6. And I definitely had clients in the beginning where I just said, I'm not the dog trainer for you. You know, the dog was out of my bounds at the time. And that came at the cost of money and that came at the cost of the business, as it were. But then it also adds to the what would you say, the trustability of your business as well, is that like, hey, listen, this guy will just tell you the truth, even if it's uncomfortable for you to hear.
What I'm hearing is you have faith, and faith is so important. I was going to start talking about it a little bit on my YouTube channel, but it might be something that I need to wait a few years. You have faith that things will work out in your favor long term if you can stomach the short-term discomfort of being honest.
I think honesty is, I think honesty will always lead you to exactly where you need to be. And as a general rule in life, you know, if I get into arguments with people all the time because I put honesty as far as I can at the forefront of how I teach. You know, if you're honest, you're never in trouble. Like if you lie or you twist things or you maybe avoid the truth for a long enough period of time, it'll come and bite you in the arse quicker than if you were to just tell the truth, you know? And so we have to sort of look at this from a more broad perspective. But yeah, absolutely. I have complete faith that my honesty will be rewarded. And it has been so far, you know? It's hard to come by in this industry though. I think a lot of people are turning into salesmen.
Well, I understand them, right? Because you're wearing two hats, right? You're wearing the hat of like a therapist, wearing a few hats. You're wearing the hat of a therapist and a coach, and you're helping this dog. And sometimes it takes longer than you think. And sometimes they'll call you or text you at off hours, and you're working. And sometimes you feel like you're working too much for how much you're getting paid, especially in the beginning. And then you have your own life and your own problems and your own issues. So, and you have to you're giving a lot of yourself here, feeling depleted here. When will this work out for me? And then you go on social media to get away, and you're like, oh my God, look at how all these people are living. How am I messing up?
Exactly. And it's
reconciling all of that mentally and emotionally, while then showing up the very next morning with more dogs and having to give the dog your best.
Absolutely.
I think the dogs build a lot of character if you stick with it, but you have to trust that. You have to have faith in the process, and really compartmentalize things, right? Like, my problems are my problems, but I'm going to show up to work tomorrow like a professional, and I'm going to remember that the Judy who just oh my God, who really got on my nerves, isn't Sandy, and I can't give the treatment that Judy got to Sandy. Sandy's a new person. And what I reminded myself was, I would say, what a blessing it is that I have another day, air in my lungs, and a person and a dog to go and serve.
10 stars. Absolutely agree with you. Fully. Comparison is the thief of joy, isn't it? So this idea that when people go on social media, they are sort of bombarded with things that have been programmed to make them scroll for longer, right? And then those things are going to be, in some capacity, positively reinforcing to look at. Now, that could just be a beautiful woman, or that could be a lavish lifestyle, or whatever it may be. But a single finger, and this is a big problem that is leaked into dogs, and it's leaked into anything that takes any amount of time to do properly, which is this sense of instant gratification that's tied to this comparison. So people go online and they go, that person has this nice outfit. And okay, well, I'm going to go online and I'm going to buy that outfit, and you can do it in 2 clicks. And you didn't have to go out and think about the money that's going to take you can go get it on Klarna, or you can go get it on one of these things now. And all of this is leading into the mentality of the average person with a dog nowadays, which is that, well, I get everything else at a click of a button. Why can't I get my dog trained at a click of a button? And it's because that's not a product. That's a living autonomous animal that has its own feelings, its own emotions, its own ideas about what the world is. And people cannot reconcile that nowadays. It's so difficult for them to. It's something that Ivan talks about quite a bit, and I absolutely love. I listened to one of his podcasts on this, and I thought it was fascinating. The idea of struggling is a powerful one, and you will find in life that there is nothing valuable that you can have as a human being without struggle. And the proposition from people like the force-free side of the argument in dog training suggests that the dogs don't need to struggle. That in fact, struggling is so aversive to dogs that it will affect the fragility of how, it'll affect how fragile they are, and then they'll fall apart. And actually what you're doing there is you're denying the dog the opportunity to figure out what struggle actually is. Struggle is inevitable, isn't it? And to learn to put meaning through that struggle for the dog is so vitally important. And whether or not you want your dog to struggle, your dog will struggle. And depending on how capable you are as a handler, you might be able to communicate these ideas to the dog and go, hey, listen, struggling is normal. You'll have to just figure it out. Or you could be one of these people that holds the dog's hand everywhere and goes, okay, I'm going to give you a treat to get you through this. Or you could say to the dog, okay, I'm going to risk you maybe kicking off, but I'm going to let you struggle through this and realize that kicking off is not the right answer. And I'm going to explain that to the dog. And then I'm going to go, okay, now I want you to try again. Now I want you to go try that thing again. And then what's fascinating about that is that when you show particularly reactive dogs, go try again, they go, wait, there's like an interruption almost. There's almost like you're letting me do this? And I'm like, yeah, go on, try it again. And that, again, prediction error. You create this, like I do it very often with the very first session. If I'm assessing a reactive dog, and I'm trying to figure out where the reactivity is coming from, I'll bring my Rottweiler out, I'll put him in a down, and I'll bring the dog out, and I'll just stand with the owners behind me, and I'll stand in between them, and I'll let the dog have a bit of a kick off at Masca, and just letting the dog go through it, and I'll let the dog go through it. Like, and like minutes sometimes of barking at this dog. Masca's just sits in a down, like, fucking hell, mate, wind your neck in. And at some point, the dog's going to go, what the fuck are we doing? And he's going to look around, or he's going to look back to his owners. And at that point, I'm going to walk him back to his owners and tell the owners, give him a cuddle. And then we're going to walk him back at the dog. And then usually, I would say 60% of the time, third or fourth time I do that, dog's fine. Dog can just go sit next to the dog now. And it's not, I haven't done anything. You get me? I have, but I haven't. And people want to say that, or well, dog trainers want to say, well, you should start reactive dogs at this distance away, and you know, threshold this, threshold that, and thresholds are important, don't get me wrong. But this obsession with constantly keeping the dogs away from struggling is the reason that we have so many neurotic, nervous, twisted up in the head, reactive, frantic dogs in today's society, because we have, as humans, come away from struggling. And so it feels much more natural to us to go, well, my dog shouldn't struggle either. But actually, if you impose struggling on yourself, like you would do in martial arts, or like you would do if you were bodybuilding, or like you would do if you were doing any form of athletics, you will find how many benefits come from those aversive experiences. And not just physical benefits, characteristic developments, developments of your brain. Your brain will actually change shape. Spinning, you know, like the cycling in sport, will grow your brain, will grow it. And we're in the other side of behavioral science, on the dog side of things, we're saying that, well, spinning is difficult and it's aversive, it hurts. And we're saying that dogs don't need anything to learn from in the same sort of way. Well, we have no evidence that that's the case in any other animal. Outside of the echo chamber of force-free dog training, that's a laughable sentence in behavioral science.
We know it hurts. We know.
Yeah, we know.
We live every day in life. We know sometimes we struggle, all of us.
Life is aversive. Whether we like that or not, that's irrelevant. Like, I don't like correcting dogs. I don't like having to punish a dog. But do I have to do it for the dog's character development? A lot of the time, the answer is going to be yes. Because in order for the dog to be the best version of himself, you need to take things off the table. You know, like if I say to my dog, you're going to be a world-class IGP protection dog, agility is off my table. You know, like I don't know, like going and sitting in pubs and whatever else. Now, again, I'm not saying that everyone who does sport shouldn't be doing these things, but for me personally, I'm not spending calories, time, money, whatever else, doing things with this dog that don't lend to the life that I'm building it, or the life that he's been built into. And there's a lot of people that say, well, you decided that life. And I'm like, well, yes, I did, but I decided that life in accordance to my dog's genetics. So my dog is exactly who he is supposed to be. His father, my dog's father, he won the worlds in the Rotti Worlds, Drago von Stormhouse. I think it was 2018, 2019.
Dude, names are incredible.
Yeah, Drago was a monster of a dog, really, really serious dog, and phenomenal competitor as well. So like, this is kind of what I said about the puppies, is that you have to confirm your dog's biology to them. All right, you're a whippet and you're a bit nervous. When was the last time you sprinted after something? You know, like things like that. When was the last time you went to, you feel depressed and you're sitting on the couch. When was the last time you went to the gym? When was the last time that you looked after yourself? When was the last time that you drank enough water? When was the last time you got sunshine? When was the last time that you ticked every biological box that you could tick in you, and then you still felt depressed? At that point, we've got a problem. But do all this first, and then there'll be a difference. Even if it's still there will be a massive difference to how that feels. And it's the same in dogs. And I don't think that's a complicated idea for people to wrap their head around, but it's just the execution. People struggle with the execution. The idea is very simple. Like, you fulfill the dog, and then you show the dog the controlling elements of life, or where the boundaries of life are.
Guys, Jack just dropped some bars. So, I mean, one, if you guys are watching, the podcast I believe Jack is referencing is Nate Schomer does a really good job with his podcast, and Ivan was recently on it. And I believe he was talking about struggle on that episode, because that one really stuck with me as well. And there's a great song by Talib Kweli. It's called Beautiful Struggle. J. Cole even says there's beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the success.
Sure.
But I love both of those songs very much. So the podcast that Jack is referencing, Nate Schomer, he had Ivan on. I still can't figure out how Ivan does 4-hour podcast. Absolutely menacing, unreal. But he was talking and he really explained. I mean, Jack, you did an amazing job there explaining the beauty in that struggle and how enriching, how fulfilling, how powerful it is for the dog to be able to struggle and get to a result versus us just keeping them from struggle. That was awesome, man. That was a really you could tell you were passionate about that concept.
Yeah.
It feels like it's something that's not just near and dear to your dogs and not the near and dear to your dog training. I think it's near and dear to you.
Yeah, definitely. I've since I was a kid, I've struggled with like when I was like a young kid, I was bullied a lot, and I went through a lot of that sort of stuff. And for a very long time, up until the point where I moved away from Scotland, I currently live in England, but obviously from Scotland. When I moved away from England, my whole sort of dichotomy changed. But for the beginning stages of my life, I was treating myself like I was a bit of a victim, and to be fair, I had every reason to think that I was. You know, like I'd get the shit kicked out of me. I'd get like whatever else. But then I realized when I started bodybuilding, oh, this is what defines you. This is what shapes you. And if you learn to add meaning to that struggle, that's where you're going to see the biggest character development that you could possibly see. I went from a lad who was probably about 8.5 stone to you guys. That's going to be about, was that 60 kilos, so about 130 pounds, 135 pounds. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a bodybuilder now, but I went up to about 15 stone. So that's about 220, 230 pounds. Yeah. And I did that over the course of 4 years. Now, yes, I grew up a great physique and I competed and I done all that sort of stuff and I dieted down and I struggled through that as well. One of the things people don't understand is that, like, I didn't want to go to the gym every night for 3 hours, but the struggle and going is what creates the character, is what confidence is not shouting affirmations in the mirror. It's building a stack of undeniable evidence that you are who you say you are. And when in dogs, I did the same thing as I did in bodybuilding. I didn't talk about bodybuilding. I'd done it. And I think that that's important as well. The importance of struggling to character development in any mammalian social animal is undeniable. And we're at a point in society now where we just continuously reject these premises and we just say, well, it doesn't feel good, so we're not going to say yes to that. And it's like, well, that's going to end up with you being severely depressed, lacking meaning in your life, and it's going to do the same thing to your dog. So if you see your dog struggling to understand something, embrace it and help the dog, maybe guide the dog, help the dog through the situation. That's absolutely fine. But don't worry about it. Like, that's the inevitable part of owning a dog, is that the dog is going to get something wrong. It's going to panic, maybe it's going to not have an answer. And you have to be able to sort of show the dog, actually, that door that you just tried to open is closed. This one opens straight away. Look at that. Fantastic. On you go. And working it like that is just much better for the dog, in my estimates.
I'll say something to any of you guys watching, whether that's December, whatever, 10th or 5th, whatever it is, 2025, or you guys, this is evergreen and you watch it in 3, 4, 5 years. I've been really interested in kind of the modern world for young men. And I'll define young men like 18 to like 40-ish, I guess we could put it. The age is sort of irrelevant, but it sort of feels like, you live with your parents for 18 years and then it's like, go, go figure this thing out. And there's not really anyone come in to save you, come in to catch you, come in to direct you. And Jack and I have never met, but like across the pond, so many of the character traits, the thoughts, the beliefs are super kindred. Like, they're very, very aligned with how I've thought about it. So if, I can't speak to the kind of the female journey. I had Sinead on, you
Yeah,
guys, that female journey of figuring things out, but I could speak to the male journey, and a lot of what you said, Jack, resonated with me. And if any of you guys out there are struggling navigating your dog business, if any of you guys are out there just struggling and kind of trying to think through stuff and like you feel like you're in that valley of despair, what I think is cool about social media that people miss is you're just one outreach away.
correct.
People will hop on the phone with you. People will do a call with you and just be like, hey, I was there a year ago. Let me tell you the 3 things that I did that really helped me.
Definitely.
So reach out, guys. JP Canine Academy, happy-go-lucky dog company. Reach out. The worst people can do is just, or anyone that you kind of like look up to and you like how they live, not just how they train, how they live. Are they the embodiment of the habits that you want to have in your life? Reach out, man. Just have to be like, hey, can you do a quick call? Because it's not easy. It really isn't easy. In your 20s and 30s, when you're trying to think about like what kind of, future you're going to have financially. Are you going to meet the person that you love? Are you going to have kids with them? Are you going to be professional success? Are you going to look like a failure? Like all of that, while building habits and having to stay the course. I feel for young men today because I think I've lived it. I'm still living it. So my point with that is reach out to people, reach out. They're willing to have success. And 2, man, your dogs are such a mirror of you. My dogs, in many ways, I would say they I don't know if I want to say they saved my life, but I'll word it. They enriched my life. They have helped me become a better man.
I want to just quickly jump on that point that you said about the dog mirroring you, because I think that's much, much deeper than people give it credit for. People see that or hear that, and then they think often, oh, the dog mirrors what you're doing. And actually, it's far more nuanced than that. It's far, far deeper than that. So let's say that you have a personality trait. Let's say that you rush around doing things. You raise your dog rushing around doing things. The dog is going to start matching your pace. So now the dog rushes everything, and now the dog can't think straight. An example would be maybe you got a bit of a temper, yeah, and because you've got a bit of a temper, that creates conflict in your relationships with people. It'll do the exact same thing to your dog. And so the depth of your dog mirrors you. Your dog can realize the difference between you walking down the street with tight shoulders and then relaxed shoulders to your dog is so fucking significant that it can change near enough everything that your dog is doing. And if that little difference makes such a significant difference, you can imagine what your mood does. And you can imagine if you have a consistent set of, let's say, emotionally driven behaviors that you attach to your dog's training, you will see them coming out of your dog. If you are an impatient person, you will have an impatient dog. If you're a hothead, you'll probably have a hot-headed dog.
Jack, tell me if you agree with this. So I used to say, I'm impatient because I have so much to do. Or I have I wouldn't say I have a temper, but let's use temper for this one.
Yeah.
I have a temper and I'll stop having a temper when my money's good, my life is good. But it's what I actually realized, it's the flip. It's your life will be good once you are conscious about these rushing or how you move through life. The result will come after the habit change within you, the emotional change within you. Not that the emotional change will happen after the external will happen.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. People have this proclivity, and it's the same with dogs. Like people have this proclivity to go to the external and attribute the external as the cause. And that's the problem, is that it's never the external is never the cause. Your reaction to the external is the cause. And it's the same to some capacity with your dog. Your dog seeing a trigger is not the problem. The way that you communicate to your dog when your dog sees a trigger is the problem. Or the way that you've been communicating for the 10 minutes before your dog saw the trigger is the problem. And so people start, this is what I said before, people start in the wrong position. What do I do when he sees a dog? No. That's the wrong question. It's not even close to the right question. What do we need to do to make sure that this dog is successful in getting past this trigger, getting through these triggers, changing the emotional response to these triggers? That's the question. And then that lends to many things that sit underneath the dog's behavior. And that's the thing that people, I honestly, I'm of the opinion, I've done this job for long enough now that I feel like I'm well within my rights to have this opinion. But I don't think somebody can train a dog unless they're absolutely dedicated to the idea. And the problem is that in today's culture, we buy dogs for the wrong reasons, and there's nothing that structures the dog's purpose. So like I did another podcast a while ago, I said something similar to this, but it's a good point to make, which is 100 years ago, if somebody bought a dog, it was because they wanted it to do something. They wanted it to be something. They wanted it to herd sheep. They wanted it to guard a junkyard. They wanted it to do whatever. Now, the thing is, if you buy a dog and then you buy it for a job, those two things align. And so then you never have behavioral problems. Or if you do have behavioral problems, it's with the temperament of the dog and not going against the dog's genetics. So like you're only going to buy a dog that would guard a junkyard that is capable of guarding a junkyard. And so nowadays we have those same dogs worse. Well, actually, that's not even entirely true. They're much more poorly bred dogs. So genetically worse versions of these dogs, more unstable versions of these dogs, sitting in pet homes and then going to training classes that are saying, give us a paw, there's a treat, It's torture for these dogs. And I don't care how many times you feed the dog in that session. The dog's thinking, this is shit, I don't want to do this, and you're forcing me to do it. And it's because you haven't thought about the genetics that you've got in front of you. You've thought about what you think that dog should know. And it's like that's ego. And you have to first educate yourself on what your dog is before you start changing what they do. You get me?
I just got a text. So like, guys, we put these shows on for you. This was a 6 a.m. So, if you guys run a kennel or you have dog training, the dogs, you got to get them out and 8 a.m., clients start texting you. I just got a text like, hey, I sent photos of a dog. I don't know what he's called, like a Bougier or something. Some of these, right. And the guy was like, he's always in the back of the pack. I would love for him to lose weight. And man, dude, overweight dogs, I gotta tell you, it's abuse. These dogs really struggle if they're overweight. They really struggle.
I'll tell you a quick story about a workshop I done up in Glasgow recently. So workshop with a guy called Ross Mack Dog Training. I actually think you've got yeah.
I think he's one of the funniest people on.
Yeah, he's good. He's good laugh, and he's a great guy.
Is he the same in person?
Oh yeah, precisely the same. Yeah. Really, really nice guy. Really lovely bloke. Good friend of mine now. So I went up to co-host a workshop with Ross, and it was just a behavioural workshop. So it was called Rehab and Rewire. And this one of the people that came in had this Rottie that came in that was just morbidly overweight. Now these people have paid a lot of money to come for a 2-day workshop with me and Ross. And I want you to keep that in mind. And this goes back to my honesty point. They brought this dog in, walked it around a bit, and I noticed that like this dog could take about 20 steps, then lie down, and he's fucked. And he's just pissed off, and he's just feeling like shit, and he's just like, this is shit. So I said, bring the dog over here. The problem with this dog is that he was biting people, and he would grab you, this dog. So we had him muzzled, and I said, put him next to me on this chair. And so I'm sat on the chair, and I touched the dog, and the dog goes, fuck off, bang, tries to grab me. And I'm like, all right, mate, calm down. And I leave him after that. And I hand the lead back to the owner, and I say, I'm not working this dog. Because the reason that he's so pissed off and is biting people is because of the way he feels physically. So until that's fixed, I can't address the psychological. And I was very brash with him. And that was in front of like 10, 12 people. And put the dog away. And I had a message from Ross yesterday saying, dog's on his fitness journey, lost a load of weight already, behavior's improving, the relationship's improving, he's playing with them now, he's doing all this, and it's simply because I refuse to work their dog. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And they wanted to say thank you, and that's why they said it. And then this is what, like, people get very caught up in hurting people's feelings. Sometimes you've got to just be willing to be like, I'm going to hurt your feelings here because you need your feelings hurt, and it is that,
But sometimes the solution is not that far away either. Like,
no.
Dude, your dog just feels like shit because so they're on 4 legs. So all the weight is compressing. And if they're 70 pounds, if a dog's supposed to be 75 pounds and it's 85 or 90, that's a big difference. That's a huge difference. So you remember you said stay in your lane? Dude, for 2 years, all I did was taught dogs how to be off leash and help them lose weight.
Yeah.
Because I live here on nature. And I wasn't even a play guy. I just really enjoy running with dogs. It helps. I really want to go in for a run in nature, and I'd be like, I'll take a pack of 1, pack of 2. Yesterday, I had a pack of 20 off-leash dogs I went for a run with.
Banging. Love that.
And there's no training, but I would argue they're the best behaved dogs.
And this is kind of what I'm saying.
Training.
And this is what Ivan makes a very, very good point of. Ivan doesn't create reinforcement schedules with dogs in the same way that. Now, again, I don't want to claim to understand all of Ivan's methods because I've watched them as an avid fan and somebody who's studied him and not somebody who's met him. But one of the things I think Ivan does very, very well, for anyone who isn't familiar with who I'm talking about here, this is Ivan Balabanov. He's a 3-time world champion in IGP. Serious guy in the game. Fantastic mind in the game as well, like aside from anything else. Ivan makes a very good point of this. He says that you just with this proclivity towards like click feed, get past the dog, click feed, all that sort of stuff. With this proclivity and with that style of training, what you're going to get a lot of the time is systematic dogs, mechanical looking dogs. You're not going to get the expression and the beautiful sort of like emotional side of the dog as well. And that's why obviously we've talked about play quite extensively. But even things like, I'm going to just put you at the side of this bike and we're going to go for 10 kilometers. Like we're going to go for a couple of miles down the road, and you watch and see how your dog's behavior changes after that. And it's just that people are not willing to do that uncomfortable thing consistently. Consistently, exactly. It's like going to the gym. It's like looking after, like eating healthily. We're all bad for it. I'm a nightmare for it as well. But when it comes to my dogs, well, that's not about me. They rely on me. So all of my dogs, one of the conditions if a dog lives in this house is that you're shredded. You're in shape. You've got muscle bellies. You've athletic. Everything about you needs to be healthy, physically healthy. You don't get fed too much. You get enough exercise, the right type of exercise. You get the psychological and biological fulfillment you need. That's it. And past that, then we start training. Then we start teaching the dog to do things. But before that, no, we need to make sure this dog is well before anything moves on.
I believe in that so much. Guys, we'll definitely do a part 2. Jack, any final words before I let you go? It's been a pleasure. Oh,
it's been an absolute pleasure to be here. If anyone wants to check me out, I'm on Instagram and TikTok, JP Canine Academy. I really appreciate for Andrew having me on. I love having these conversations with the people in the industry, especially over the pond and whatever else. It's genuinely been my pleasure, mate.
JP, there's no ands on Instagram.
JP, yeah, on Instagram it'll be JP. Because I couldn't put the ampersand symbol on it. But yeah, JP or JP.
Thank you, guys.